And we are starting our webinar. My name is Svetlana, as probably most of you know. I work in Agile practice, in Luxoft Agile practice. And the webinar that we are going to listen today is a part of AC Agile training course. And it is a part of AC Agile Facilitation Team Training. It is here on a yellow item, this curl. It is one of the trainings of AC Agile. And our plan for today is the following. First of all, we are going to discuss Walt Disney Model for creativity, thinking, and effective conversations. Then we will learn Cartesian Coordinates, very good technique for decision making, for personal decision making, like individual, how I am as individual can make decisions more effectively, and how a group who I facilitate can make decisions better. Then we will talk a bit about pro-con analysis of the situation. This technique, pro-con analysis, can be based on Cartesian coordinates or can be used separately as a separate technique. Then I will tell a few words about feedback models. The one model is coin and the next model is star model. We will also learn about gradients of consensus, because sometimes yes, it is 100% yes, but sometimes yes can be like I can live with it, or I don't mind to do something, but it is not 100% yes. And the same situation with no. And for group conversations, for group decisions making, we should take into account this idea that sometimes there is not only black and white, not like yes and no, but there is some other gradients of this. There will be a QA session, question answering session. And during our webinar, I am going to have to look at question tab from time to time and answer your questions during webinar. If there is no time for the questions if there is no time for some questions during the webinar, I will answer it in email. And also, sorry for delaying the recordings from the previous webinars, from the webinar of June 19 and June 25. I hope to send you follow-up for June 19 webinar today and for June 25 next week. There is some problems with video recording over there and we are working to fix it. Also, I will share with you materials for further reading and watching and the attendance code, because this webinar provides you a possibility to cover two learning objectives from AC Agile Team Facilitation Training. So we are starting. Some questions are coming. And if there are any problems with the sound, please write me to the question tab, and I will try to help you with it if I can. So the first topic for today is Walt Disney Model for creativity, thinking, and conversation. And you hear now, and you can see now this model. This model consists of 4 elements. One element is for dreamer, the one is for realist, the third one for critic, and the fourth one for observer. This model can be used for group facilitation and for personal thinking. What it is meant? It is we can split the group into 4 groups, and one of the subgroups will be dreamers, the second one will be realists, the third one will be critics, and the fourth one will be observers. Or we ourselves in our head can split our way of thinking into 4 patterns. When you facilitate retrospective, for instance, using this model, it is good to split people in the room, in locations. For instance, ask a part of people to come to one corner, and it will be dreamer group. The other part will come to the other corner, it will be realist group. The third will be critic, and observers will occupy the place near all 3 other groups in order to observe the process. Now I will tell a few words about each group. So Dreamers. Dreamers generates new ideas. It can be any ideas. Any idea is welcome for this situation. The main motto of Dreamers is why not to try? For instance, if we are discussing the issue whether we are going to have auto tests on our project or not, Dreamers can generate any ideas on this topic. Why it can be necessary, these auto tests, what frameworks can be used, do we have resources or not, anything. Like Dreamers can say, we are going to use all our development team to provide auto tests for our project. Anything can go there, or Dreamers can say we are going to hire some third-party team to provide our auto tests services. Anything. It's just like in brainstorming. Any idea is welcomed. But then all these ideas go to realists. So Dreamers generated a bulk of ideas, and all these ideas go to realists corner. And the people who are realists, they try to apply these ideas onto the practice in reality. How these ideas meet, for instance, the project needs, how these ideas can live within the project limits, some constraints around the problem on the project. Some frameworks costs a lot, some auto testing frameworks costs a lot, and probably the project budget can't afford it, or there is not enough people to do auto testing on the project. Or for instance, the client may be not interested in auto testing. Maybe he doesn't understand how it can improve the code quality. So realists meet the ideas generated by Dreamers to reality. When it is done and all information is received from realists, the critic come onto the stage, and the critics finds reasons why the ideas that are already applied onto the practice by realists would not work. The critic tries to investigate the risks about the idea. Critic not only criticizes the ideas, but also provides some mitigation plans for the ideas. Critics is someone who tries to validate the idea from different angles, from different sides, to make sure that it will really make benefit for the project. So who is observer? Observer is someone who facilitates the process. Observer is someone who knows the rule of this game, this Walt Disney model, and tells what to do, what should be done by each role during particular time. That first Dreamers come, then realists and critics, the ideas are written down. And here is more detailed description of how to use Walt Disney Model. So here is the rules for Dreamers. The rules and the questions in these items are necessary for observers or facilitators to deal with the particular role. For instance, an observer could make sure that Dreamer generates as much ideas as possible, that reality is suspended, that reality is not taken into account when Dreamers are generating ideas. There is no constraints, no boundaries, zero evaluation or criticism of ideas. When Dreamers are talking, no one else is contributing. Dreamers are talking, it means that realist and critic keep silent, and observer is observing this. What questions can help Dreamers to create more ideas? It is the questions that observer can ask Dreamers. So what you want to do, what you want, why you want to do it, what is the purpose of after testing, for instance, what is the outcome, how you will know that you achieve the results, how you will know, for instance, that you increase, that you improve code quality. It's time box, and first 15 minutes time box is to explain the rules for the team. The second is for Dreamers to talk, the third is for realist, the fourth is for critic, and then, for instance, you have 15 minutes or 30 minutes to gather the results of this retrospective or the usage of this model. So when observer explains all the rules, then people start talking. So the dreamers has provided their ideas, and then the realists will start doing their job. So the realists consider resources, people, budget, time, some other resources, availability, what resources are available for a particular idea of dreamer. They're taking the ideas one by one. Some idea, for instance, dreamers can say, let's ask all our development team to do auto tests for our project, but really say, hey, we can't do this because there is not enough time then for development. We have this list of tasks for the next sprint, we have the following sprint scope, and we can only allow 2 developers out of our, for instance, 7 or 8 developers to spend no more than 20 hours on auto testing in order to deliver our sprint scope and to do auto testing in parallel. So realist filtering each ideas of dreamers. Realists are aware of constraints and limits, and realists adapt the idea to fit reality. And the observer helps realists to do this with the following questions. So does the idea match the criteria or purpose for which it is intended? For instance, if the main idea was to improve the quality of our code, so it is the question, does the auto testing actually improve the quality of our code? And realists should think about this question. How specifically the idea is going to be implemented? How will you know if the goal is achieved? When will each phase be implemented? If you are implementing some idea in steps, in iterations, so when each iteration of the implementation should start and when to finish, and what time can be allocated for this. So realists go deeper into the idea. When realists worked with ideas, some ideas are taken away and some ideas are taken in, and the ideas that are taken in, the ideas that are proved by reality that it can work, these ideas come to critics. And critics identifies all the problems and risks, see negative consequences. If we implement something on the project, probably there can be some negative consequences. What can be? And also critics points out improvements. It is the very important part of critic job. It's not only to criticize, but to say how the situation can be improved. So the following questions can be asked by observer to the critics. Why might someone object to this idea? Maybe there is some stakeholders who doesn't want to have after tests on the project. Who it can be? Do all these ideas, all the ideas that are generated by dreamers and then filtered by realists, do all these ideas fit together? Do they work all together? Who and how will these new ideas affect? Maybe there are some people, some stakeholders who can have bad impact because of these ideas. How the idea can worsen the current situation. How we can not even improve the code quality, but degrade the code quality with usage of after tests. When and where would you not want to implement this new idea? What can be our risks mitigation plan? So observer can ask critics to prepare a mitigation plan for some ideas. And observers itself also have some rules to follow. Observer must introduce instructions about this game, must do time boxing, track the participants' follow scenarios, track that dreamers are talking about any ideas without criticism, without any boundaries, make sure that realists know some constraints, aware of the limits, and test the idea to fit reality, and make sure that critics not only criticizing the ideas but also pointing out improvements. So it is the observer role to do. also observer makes notes in order all ideas were written down and answer questions about the format during this game. It is the role of facilitator, the observer here, and you can try this format to do retrospective for your team. And I will be glad then to get your feedback, how you have used it and what results you have get. The next technique that I'm going to introduce to you is Cartesian coordinates for decision making. This technique, the main idea of this technique is to test some statement, some idea from 4 angles, from 4 sides. So what will happen if you do it? For instance, the example here is for individual usage. So you can use Cartesian coordinates for yourself and you can use Cartesian coordinates for your team. For instance, what will happen if you quit your job? Or for instance, what will happen if you as a team relocate, for instance, from Kiev to Wrocław or from Kiev to Krakow? Here we tested, first of all, 2 positive scenarios. What will happen if you do it? There is no not, so it is positive statement. And then you write down all the answers to this first question. So this technique helps you to gather as much information as possible to make your decision more effective. When all the answers to this statement is written, you test your statement with the second case. What will happen if you don't do it? What will happen if you not relocate? Or what will happen if you not quit your job, don't quit your job? For instance, here you can see that I will be able to have paid vacation next month. The third case is what will not happen, and you see the minus here, not happen, if you do it. And if you do it, there is no not, it is positive part of this statement. So positive and negative, it is not better or good, it is just negative when you use not and positive when you don't use not. What will happen if you do it? What will not happen if you relocate? What will not happen if you quit your job? I will not get my quota bonus. Probably it is not very good. So, and you can write here as many answers as possible. For instance, usually this technique is used for 30-40 minutes to investigate the situation. Not for 5 or 10 minutes. It is quite long technique, and you need to think over each statement, testing your statement with each case. The fourth case is 2 minuses. What will not happen if you do not do it? What will not happen if you don't quit your job? I won't be able to find a job that gives me a sense of satisfaction. Can be the answer. Here can be any other answers. So when you did this technique, again, you can do it personally for yourself, decision making, like a coaching technique, or you can use it as a facilitation technique for your group. For instance, if you have some decision about like relocation, about team buildings, about usage of some implementation approach, you can test it in front of all these 4 cases. You can spend like 30-40 minutes to gather all the possible scenarios, how the situation will happen or not happen in this or that case. When you did this technique, you can go to the next technique. Pro and con analysis. And you can use the statements that you get in this technique for decision making in this pro-con list. It is just a pro-con list. Probably you already have some experience when getting from the idea some disadvantages and some advantages. So disadvantages are going to pros section of the list, and for cons is going to for pros it is going some advantages, and for cons is going disadvantages of the idea. So you gathered some information with this technique, and then you sort it out using this technique, or you can already start from this technique. You can use some pro for some advantages into the pros section, and for cons you can use disadvantages. For instance, if I quit my current job, I will get an opportunity to find a job that suits me better. For instance, if our team relocate to Wrocław, let us say, we will remain in the same with the same team members, so our team will not be split apart if we all relocate to Wrocław. If I quit my job, I stop spending an hour and a half to my trip to the office. So as the previous technique, coordinates, this pro-con analysis can also be used for individual facilitation thinking facilitation, and for group thinking facilitation. So you can use these techniques for yourself and for the group. And again, you can use it as separate techniques, and you can use it as a tandem, as a one technique after another. First, gathering some information with Cartesian coordinates, and then doing pro-con analysis of the situation. I have some questions coming, and I'm going to read it. So there is a question about Walt Disney Model. People feels more comfortable in some specific roles. Someone loves to be dreamer, someone to be critic. Does it mean that we have to assign people accordingly to their comfort state, or should assign people randomly? I would suggest to assign people randomly, because you already know that they're good dreamers, and then they usually generate, for instance, during retrospectives, lots of ideas, but these ideas are very difficultly to fit into reality. That probably you can ask a person to become a realist just for this particular retrospective, just to play and to see how it will go. If the person is against it, then okay, that person can remain dreamer. There is no too much demand to make someone critic out of dreamer. So you can just ask people to play, to try some new role. This technique is quite similar to the technique with sixth thinking hat. Probably you remember it from my previous sessions on facilitation techniques. So again, you can do it randomly. You can write some dreamer, realist, critic, observer statements on the piece of paper, and then people can choose the pieces of paper with the roles, and then can split it according to these roles and see how it will go. What I see that there are lots of people I usually would like to own critic position. And if you have too many critics, then you will probably don't have lots of ideas after this session. So the only thing that I could recommend here, that it can be a must, that you have more or less similar number of people in dreamer corner, in realist corner, and in critic corner. In order, there were lots of ideas generated, lots of ideas tested upfront reality, and lots of ideas criticized, and mitigation plans were provided for the ideas. So the next model that I would like to get you familiar with, that will help you to do effective conversations, is a coin model to provide feedback. Sometimes we as facilitators, and actually as managers, as leaders, as Scrum Masters, need to provide our feedback to people. And it is good when you have some feedback models to provide these feedbacks. For instance, there is a very simple feedback model. It is called sandwich, when you provide some good information first, then some critic information, and then again good information. So probably you know it already. And there is one more feedback model. It is called coin. First of all, you connect the information you're providing to the person goals and interests. For instance, you're a manager or you're a Scrum Master, and you are telling a person, I know that your goal is increase collaboration with the customers through frequent and effective communication. It seems quite well. Then you communicate some observations. I have noticed this week that during calls with customers you were editing some documents in parallel. Probably you were not very involved in the conversation. So first of all, you connect what you're going to see, your observation, to the person goals and interests, and then you provide your observation. Then you tell a person impact, how your observations can impact someone or something. When the client don't feel heard, or when something from their talk is missed, we can't easily diagnose or address their needs. We can get problems with identification of their expected results. So, first of all, I told a person that I know that he has positive purpose, positive goal. Then I provide my observation, and then I provide how my observation or how the situation can impact our future collaboration with clients. Next step. It is the final model item. Let's review our activity. So what we're going to do with this situation. Let's review our active listening approach and discuss possibilities to stay more focused and involved during calls. For instance, as a Scrum Master, you can read some literature about active listening approaches. There are lots of it. It is a coaching technique, and you can talk to your team member and provide them information how they can do it in order to stay more focused during the calls, during some distributed team meetings. So it is a model how you can provide feedback more effectively, not just tell a person just stop editing any documents, stop doing any activity when you're on a call with the client. Probably the person will not hear you in such a case. But with this coin model, you make a person understand that you think good of him or her, that you really observe the situation, that you tried to get deeper into details of this situation, that you see some bad impact of the situation onto the future, and you actually think over the next steps that you and him can do together. The next model also that can be helpful for feedback providing, it is called STAR model. ST stands for situation or task. This model can be done in a very simple scenario, like a first part, only STAR, but can be done also in more extended way, and we will review two of them. So, first, STAR. ST. Last week I asked you to complete a spreadsheet on team members' release capacity. For instance, a project manager is telling it to a Scrum Master. Then we go to first A. They can be, in simple way, they can be 1A and 1R, but in a more complex way, they can be 2A and 2R. So we are going through the first case, the easy case. The easy case. When you were provided all of the required data, so all the necessary data were provided to the Scrum Master to prepare the report, so the manager received it 2 days after the report was requested. So the action was taken by the manager. The manager taken into account that probably Scrum Master can't get the necessary data by himself, so the manager provided all the information to the Scrum Master, or asked some other people to provide this information to Scrum Master, and then Scrum Master need only to summarize this information and to create the report. So that is 1A, and let me take a bit of water. So, and then we're going to the R1. Actually, I have here a mistype because R2 must be R1. So here is like R1. Because the report was late, I had to delay a release planning meeting with the stakeholders, and they were disappointed. So I am telling their employee the result. Because of the report is not prepared, I had problems with clients. So it is the first case how the feedback can be provided. Some situation stated. I also communicated the actions that I made to help the person to resolve the situation, and then I am talking about the result, the impact. When it is done, you can start the part 2. When it is done first as T, R1 and R1, then you can listen to the person feedback. So the person is going to say something to you when you provide the first part of your feedback. And you can find out that in this particular situation, the person was given some other tasks, probably from you, probably from some other managers, and he or she can have competitive activities. So in this case, when you listen, so you can stop here, like when you do the first round of STAR, then listen for the feedback from listen to the feedback from the person, and then say what to do in such situation in the future. The next time you have faced with competing priorities, feel free to come to me for further directions. So you understood that there were competing priorities, then there were some problems which prevented the Scrum Master to prepare this report, and you are telling him or her what to do in this situation next time. And then there will be another result. That way I will know if you are having challenges completing a request, and I can help you prioritize the assignments. So the result can be different in this case. So first you provided your feedback, describe the situation, describe the actions that you already done, and described the results that already took place. Then you listen for the feedback, and then you provide next actions that can improve the situation and can improve the result. So it is more complex model, like star R model, than the coin one, but it takes into account the feedback. There is time for feedback, and there is time for the second round from you as the facilitator of the conversation. You can use both of this model to facilitate your own conversations with someone and to facilitate conversations in your team. You can coach your team, and you can, when you see that someone is providing feedback to someone else, you can say, let us try one of the feedback models. Let's try to provide feedback to one another using some feedback model, for instance during retrospective. Not just tell to one another that you did it wrong or you did it right. Let's do it, try to do it in such a way, and it will be more constructive, and probably it will provide better results. Here we are coming to a facilitation technique for decision making, for group decision making. It is gradients of yes and no. As I already said, sometimes yes is wholehearted yes, it's 100% yes. And sometimes yes, it's agreement with minor contention. So not perfect, but it is good enough. So it is so yes. And sometimes people can support some idea, but with some reservations. I can live with it, but probably there are some better ideas that can be taken. You can use such icons. Actually, it is cards, and these cards can be found over there. There is a link from where you can download this card and use this again during retrospective. When the team is making decisions, they can make decisions with roam voting. Probably you've been on our previous session on facilitation, and you already know how to use roam voting with your thumb up and thumb down. So there is like two possible variants to vote for decision, like thumb up I am for decision, and thumb down I am contra decision. But you can use more information over it. It will help to see you how people actually their actual opinion, not only yes and no. Maybe if you see that someone support some idea with the reservations, you can ask a person, what are the reservations? Maybe you have some improvements in mind and can share it with all of us. Also, there is a question mark here, not only yes and no, but sometimes the idea is not clear. For instance, you're discussing some implementation approach, or you're discussing some user story, and you're voting whether you're taking this user story into the sprint or not taking this user story into the sprint. And there is a questions. And there is a questions over this model, over this this idea. Also, probably there are people who don't care. They don't care about taking this user story into the sprint or not taking this user story into the sprint. So they're just, this issue doesn't affect them. Why should they vote then yes and no? So they can show you this card. So again, you can download these cards from this link, or you can use any other cards. You can just prepare it by yourself, like you can prepare planning poker cards by yourself, you can prepare these cards by yourself, you can just without images just draw 100, accept it with reservations, accept it with minor contention. There is also veto sign. It means that the person will not agree on this idea anyway. So veto means that further discussion is necessary. The person is blocking the proposal. The person is blocking the proposal to take this user story into the sprint. There is some ideas that he or she would like first of all to tell. And there is also serious disagreement. Don't count on me. Don't count that I will be developing this user story in the sprint. So I am not agree. I think that the user story is not ready for the sprint. The requirements are not ready on this user story. So I have serious disagreements about this story. Some people asking me to show star model again, and I will go a bit back to star model. So here is the star model. So the star and coin models are used for feedback providing. And the model that we're discussing now, it is team decision model that helps the team to make decisions more effectively. It provides you more information about your team, about their yes and no. If you don't want to use the cards, if you don't have any drawing skills as you think, you can use your fingers to use this technique. Everybody have fingers, that is good. So use your fingers for voting. 5 fingers voting. If I show 5 fingers, if someone tells some idea and they need to vote for this idea and I show 5 fingers, I'm all in. I completely agree with the idea. 4 fingers means I buy into the option, I will support it. Okay, so I will support this idea. Probably I'm not wholehearted for it, but it's okay. 3 fingers. I may have some reservations, but I can support the idea and move forward. Probably here you will need to find out what are the reservations, what are the limits the persons know about the idea. 2 fingers. I have reservations and I cannot support this decision without further discussion and clarifications. I do need to know how particularly we are going to do the connection to the database, for instance, and I'm going to discuss it further with the team. I don't want to just to take this user story into the sprint right away. 1 finger. If I show 1 finger, I still need to discuss certain reservations and suggest changes that should be made. So the changes must be made to this user story. More information should be provided. Probably acceptance criteria should be provided. Mock-ups should be provided. So I will not vote for this idea till some information is added. And feast, it is no vote. It is veto, actually, a way to block consensus. So you can agree with the team, for instance, if someone shows you a feast or someone shows a veto card from this technique, it means that you are not taking this idea, that this idea should be further discussed and voted then again. So you can use both these techniques to improve your consensus voting into the teams. You can use it for plannings, for taking user stories into the sprint or not. You can use it again for retrospectives. You can use it also to vote for the idea whether you're going to show this user story on review or not, whether this user story is ready to be shown on review or not. You can also use both of these techniques. Now we have some minutes for questions, so I'm taking questions from you. What to do after people voted and votes are different? Good question. So for instance, the people voted and you get you have 10 people in the team and you get, for instance, 3 wholehearted support of the idea, some reservations, no vetoes. For instance, some people abstain, some have questions. First of all, before you use this technique, you should set up the rules for usage. For instance, you say that we are accepting some idea that 60% or 80% of the team are wholehearted for the idea. You are set up the rules before you use this technique. Or for instance, we are accepting the idea if there is no vetoes or no serious disagreements. So when you set up these rules, you can start using this technique. Or you can start using this technique and set up the rules. The rules will evolve from the situation. You can discuss it. There is one more question. Indecision is ingredient of yes and no. Indecisions, I think it means abstains. It is someone who does not decide. Actually, yes, it is not yes and not no. So abstain is something outside of yes and no. So, but it is good to provide the people this possibility to show probably that they don't care whether this decision is taken or not. And then you can have a possibility to see these people and ask them why you think this idea doesn't impact you. Because the person can say it doesn't have any connection with the database. This is a completely UI task. No database is necessary over there, so I don't care about it. But some other person can say, probably you are mistaken. There will be some connections. And then the dialogue can start. So this technique visualize the people's opinion about this idea, their idea, which usually we don't have this good kind of visualization when we use only roam voting with yes and no. So, any other questions? If there are any questions, I will come back and probably provide more information on some of the models that we have learned today. But now I will share with you recommended materials from me for you to read on facilitation. You will get this presentation and you will get this video recording within 10 days, probably a bit longer period of time after the webinar. So you will get these lists of recommended materials, but I would like to make some comments on it. So here is the first item of these recommended materials is the Facilitator Guide for Participatory Decision Making by Sam Kainer. It is actually a book not only on agile facilitation, but on facilitation in general. It is the very best book on facilitation. And Sam Kainer is actually a grandfather of facilitation. It is the person who invented the conception, who probably not invented but described in details the conception of facilitation, how group facilitation can be made. The book is quite large. I read it like section by section, like chapter by chapter, so you can do the same, but it is a very good book on facilitation. You can even then do facilitation not only for agile teams, but for instance, when your friends are discussing something, you can facilitate this idea, or when you are making some workshop for your team, some technical workshop, you can do facilitation as well using this book. They have lots of practical examples as well as very good theory on facilitation. The next item is RetroMat. It is a cookbook for retro facilitation. This site contains not only the techniques for facilitation, but by step-by-step scenarios, step-by-step instructions how to conduct retrospective. What will be the first activity on retrospective? What will be the second activity on retrospective? The third, the fourth. So it provides the retrospective scenario from beginning to the end. Also, you can watch a video on graphic facilitation. I showed it probably during our previous session. This video will help you to make your facilitation style more vivid, more visual, more graphical. So you can learn from this how to draw very simple symbols, and then you can use it during your facilitation, when you're writing follow-ups, when you're writing minutes, during meetings. Here is also a post, my blog post, about the tools for distributed teams. For instance, if you have your team members in Sofia, if you have your team members in Krakow, in Bucharest, in Kiev, in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, there are some tools that can help you to do facilitation. It is not facilitation technique, but tools, programs. I tried these programs, and in the post I described the ideas of its usage. Video on empathy. Empathy is one of the 7 leader qualities, and 7th leader is a role model for facilitator. So you can watch what empathy is and how it differs from sympathy. You can also to apply for face-to-face training, facilitation, agile team facilitation training, and I will then include you in the preliminary list of participants. When a group of 8+, like 8, 10, 12 people is gathered in some of the locations, I will come to this location and provide face-to-face training. If you participated in all the webinars, probably you will be able to participate only into the part of this training to get the certificate of IC Agile, because you studied already part of the materials during the webinars, you are getting these attendance codes, and then you can learn only the part of the training. Some exercises, some games, some materials that are good to do on practice. So what else? There are also recordings and presentations of my webinars on facilitation. For instance, how to facilitate product backlog refinement sessions, PBRs, or pre-planning sessions. It is the sessions the team have to clarify the requirements for them. And there is a recording of the webinar, how to do it. How to facilitate meetings, Scrum events, and group decisions. This webinar, there are lots of techniques. The webinar is very high level from the point of details about the techniques, but it contains lots of techniques with high level description. So if you would like to enrich your skills with techniques, not the theory, but the particular techniques, you can watch this webinar. There is also Agile Team Facilitator Mindset and Behavior. So the webinar about mindset and behavior of facilitator, the facilitation in general, and facilitator stance. The power of visualization webinar will help you to get the idea of infographics, of data visualization patterns, how to visualize your information to make it more available, more acceptable by the audience. And also a small post. So this is the recordings, and the last one is a post about silent voting technique. Probably most of you knows this technique. It is also called dot voting technique, but this technique is described over there in details. Now, what services are available from Agile Practice for now? There are certain certified classes, certified courses that we are providing. And again, if you would like to apply for it, write me in a mail, as it is written over there, face-to-face training, and I will add you to preliminary lists of these classes. We are providing these classes quite rarely, probably 1 per quarter, but we are trying to improve this situation, and I hope we will be able to provide more of these classes for Luxoft employees. If you are not from Luxoft, you can also write me your request, and I will contact you to provide further details.